This week on You Deserve Medals.
Out of the way, prick!
Okay, so this is wow, I'm really on the ball right now. And I can cut all this shit out. It's fine. It's fine.
No, it's awesome when it's
Yeah.
instantaneous failure. It's great.
It's real and raw. All right, so this is You Deserve Medals. This is our first actual episode. We recorded a sort of secret episode we might release someday down the road, but this is our first real ass episode. We watched the legendary film Willow that holds up somewhat, I guess,
Now,
at this point.
I was actually thinking about that, and it holds up in a different way than something like a Star Wars holds up. And it holds up because, warts and all, it had a special place in our hearts. That's how I feel.
But before we get into it, I have a treat for you.
Oh, God.
I want to play this treat for you.
Lay it on me.
Okay, you ready?
I think so. What is that?
I just thought you'd enjoy that. That's all of the incidents of Willow saying Kaya, his wife's Kaya.
Does he ever say it in a non-frantic and excitable way? Does he ever go like, "Hey, Kaya, what's going on?" Or is it all just?
He does. Yeah, no, he does, but I didn't include those because they're not as entertaining. There's a couple times like Kaya, or we gotta go Kaya.
Well,
You have to take the baby, Kaya.
Clearly, despite watching it again very recently, that's another detail that I seem to have missed. that and the dummy, which I'm still really upset with myself about because I have been watching this movie repeatedly for 22 years, and I was today years old when you informed me.
Until I watched it on Sunday night, I don't know how I missed that. It's the funniest thing ever.
I can't unsee it now. It's the head bobbing up and down.
Oh my god, the way it flops around, because it's so stiff and wooden, And I mean, obviously, we'll get to that part a lot.
Yeah.
So what I'm gonna do here is, because you made notes, I'm gonna let you take the lead.
Oh God.
And sort of guide the episode because I didn't take notes. So why don't you start with? Did you take notes in sort of order as you saw things in the movie?
Yeah, I noticed a lot more in the beginning than I did as things went on. There's some more general stuff, but a lot of it was really in the beginning when they were kind of setting the stage, and there are little things that I noticed that I never really thought of before until I knew we were going to be talking about this movie, and I'm like, you know what? This is actually stuff that at the very least needs to be called out, and if I'm wrong or weird on it, I'm totally fine with that. It's just, yeah. So here's my first curiosity. Okay, so the Seers predicted that a baby would grow up and overthrow Queen Bavmorda. All right.
Right.
So this raises a lot of questions on my mind. I can't just gloss over this. Number one, how old is Bavmorda? How long has she been around? And how long will she continue to be around? She has an adult daughter, right? Does the daughter get to live long as well? How did the Seers have enough time throughout history to prophesize the coming of a baby and then that baby growing older and destroying Queen Bavmorda, which the baby didn't have to do. The baby just had to be a baby to kill the queen. But that's the first thing that kind of stuck out to me. Now that you really drill into it, how old is this bitch? And how old is she going to be?
Right. There's a lot of sloppiness when it comes to the lore of the film, because it's just hey, we want to make another Star Wars without making Star Wars.
Yeah.
And we need to set up a bunch of parameters and rules right out of the gate, and it doesn't really matter if they make sense because people aren't going to watch this movie in 40 years. And make notes about it. But a lot of it feels like that. A lot of it feels like we're just going to almost pretend there's a backstory, but we know there's not. I don't understand who even the opposing forces are in this movie. They're very poorly stated.
They're very vague about that. You just have that one guy, Eric, and I can't remember, even though I watched it yesterday, the name of the Galadon or something like Galadon.
Something, it's very generic sounding fantasy stuff.
Yeah, so basically that was one of the kingdoms that Bavmorda overthrew, and
Yeah.
he and his band of soldiers are quite literally wandering the wasteland, hiding from Queen Bavmorda. So that's
yeah,
that's
so
about all you know.
Yeah, and I think it's really not intended to be looked into that deeply, which is weird because when we'll get into this later when they made the sequel books,
Oh God.
which is where we thought we would get more backstory. But anyway, we'll get to that later. So let's continue on with your notes and curiosities, and we'll hit each point as we come across it.
All right. So along the same lines, shortly after you find out about this prophecy crap, you know how the mom in the cell begs the midwife or the laundry lady or whatever the hell she is to like take the baby and run away.
Yes,
And you remember how she like
the story of Exodus. You mean?
yeah, basically the story of Exodus. So this laundry lady just left the cell. She just leaves the cell, and then the queen and the soldiers come down. And
Yeah, they suck at this.
well, like she just left the cell, and then by the time the queen walks into the cell, immediately demands the baby and immediately finds out that the baby isn't there. The laundry lady has quite literally made it halfway across the globe. Like she has left the castle, left the town surrounding the castle, went into the wilderness, and made it to some river in the middle of nowhere before the queen steps 20 steps and then shakes a blanket to find out there's no baby there. Like, that woman
Basically, yeah.
is a track star. Like F off
She is.
Usain Bolt. Like just
And what a dignified ending she comes to, because then the fucking wolves come and tear the shit out of her. I mean, my God.
she grabs a stick, and at the very least, I'm thinking she's gonna get one of them in the head, right? Like she's gonna die. There's a bunch of wolves chasing her, but she's gonna get one of them with a stick.
Nope.
She just
I don't think she gets to swing that thing once.
She doesn't swing it. She doesn't even hold it up in a threatening manner. She holds it like it's an umbrella. like
She just wants to let them know she has a stick.
It's like this. Maybe she's trying to play fetch and distract them. I don't know, but
who knows?
Yeah, she gets and I. We're gonna talk about this in a bit. But,
Oh yeah, I know what moment you're talking about.
But okay, when like just on the subject of dummies, when it cuts away for a second with her with the stick, you see the baby floating. It cuts back to her. They clearly put a badly constructed dummy or something there, and they filled it with raw meat because those dogs are shaking the shit out of it.
Oh
it's
effective. They look very vicious.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they were great, but yeah, I just found that funny.
Yeah, and keeping on that, the dogs. I always compare them to the rodents of unusual size in Princess Bride.
Yes. Yeah.
Which look like shit. Like they look like absolute dog shit. Right? But these dogs, whatever they did to them to make them look like whatever weird hybrid dog, wild boar things they're trying to look, they look pretty good. Like it's, you could feel like there's George Lucas money behind the prosthetics on these things.
Oh yeah, no, they didn't look too bad. Like they were convincing enough that I didn't think like this is insane bullshit. But
right.
Yeah,
what's next?
Just keep going down my list of shame. All right, so when I was just curious about this. So the dude who plays the wizard, right? Like in Willow's village.
Oh, the old wizard.
The old wizard. Yeah, I think I looked at Billy Barty.
Yes, Billy Barty, the famous Billy Barty.
Okay, can you explain to me? So in the opening credits, it goes through the names, and then it says special appearance by Billy Barty.
Billy Barty's huge.
Is he really?
Oh yeah, in the 60s and 70s, I want to say he had a huge, presence on TV and stuff. Specifically, do you remember the show Bizarre with John Biner?
Yes.
Remember the little person that was on that show?
Yeah.
That was Billy Barty. And he's just one of those people that was just, you've seen him a million times, but you probably didn't even realize
Got it. Well,
so yeah, he's a big deal.
Okay, because I was wondering, because like as far as I could tell, he just played a role like any other character in the movie, but he was a special appearance. I'm like, what? Why is that?
It's pretty much
that makes sense.
It's pretty much the most famous. Like we need the most famous little person that has ever acted to be in this movie to be this special role.
So, speaking of which, All right. So he can act.
Yes.
He was great.
Yeah.
Warwick was great. Like
Yeah, yeah.
I think he's
I mean, he's got the whole movie on his shoulders, and I think he carries it pretty well.
oh yeah, he's a solid. So those two are solid actors. Could they? And I'm just spitballing here. Could they not have put a casting call out and found at least one other little person who could act their way out of a wet paper bag? Because it feels like every other little person in the entire movie was just garbage actor or actress. They're just terrible.
I want to say at the time it was just like we go for visuals. We're not concerned with ability.
I guess so.
And because they needed so many of them, and I'm sure that's not. I mean, I bet a lot of those weren't even actors. In fact, I guarantee the daughter of Willow, the son of Willow seems like a little child actor to me.
Yeah, but the daughter,
right?
you can tell. Yeah,
the daughter
yeah.
has no acting skills whatsoever,
Yeah.
and that will come into stark relief in a few minutes.
We keep dancing around that moment.
I know. All right, okay, move on. We'll get there.
Oh God. Oh
God.
man, I'm enraged now. So Willow does his big magic trick in front of the village,
Right.
for the festival. What the fuck are they celebrating, by the way? Like, what could they
Okay.
possibly be celebrating?
What are they celebrating? And why is only Willow's wife not allowed to go? Right? He goes like he's off to work. Like, I'm off to my 9 to 5. God damn it. And she's off at home. And then you get to the village and you realize that this is a festival. They're going to like Coachella,
Okay,
and she's got to be at home babysitting this daikini baby.
Here's my theory on that. Okay, I think the excuse is she has to watch the daikini baby because that's a big
Yeah, it
deal.
is. I think so. It just looks funny to me.
I think there's a little bit of stuff going on. I think something was going on between her and Burglecut. Like they're
Okay, you mean the little person version of King Kong?
I was
Bundy?
just gonna say, oh my God!
Yes.
I thought
It's
like,
uncanny.
Did they shrink him? Like, and also I'm kind of, he's like a kindred spirit to me because he clearly has some kind of glandular issue. Yeah, when they're when they're in the big like meeting hall and they're all talking about what to do with the baby.
Yeah.
Everyone just looks normal, and then he is just this sweaty piece of shit. Like he is just glistening with drips.
And I don't think that was makeup. I think he just is
he
a
was-
sweaty little man.
He was a sweaty little man. No one else was, but he was just sweating profusely. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he's a little king of my life. Anyways, I really feel as though there was something going on, like in the past. Maybe they dated before she married Willow, or her and Willow had a rough patch of it when the first kid came, and like she started getting real close to this rich guy who sells seeds, and
he comforted her.
He comforted her. He's like, "Don't worry, your husband's just having a rough time. He he has to have a pig pull a plow. Can't be that great, right?" Anyway, so that I'm pretty sure something was going on there. That's my fan theory that has absolutely no.
Well, it would
basis
explain their rivalry because they have this weird rivalry for some reason.
They do.
Where he's living up Willow's ass for some, I don't know why, and then maybe that's why, because Willow took the girl of his dreams. He took Kaya away from him, and now he's left to just hang out with his mates all the time, I guess.
All right, so when he's doing, I totally digress there. When he's doing his magic trick in front of the whole village, and he fucks up. The pig just like comes out of nowhere and ruins the entire thing. I get that everyone's laughing at him. What I don't get are his fucking prick kids.
What the fuck is that?
Are laughing hysterically at their
Yeah.
father's absolute debasement and humiliation. Like they might as well like start yelling "cuck" at him repeatedly. They're just
Totally.
just awful kids. Like, what's wrong with you guys? Your dad just embarrassed himself. Be supportive. Like, just go up and
It's
say,
so weird.
"Sorry, Dad, you're still our hero." No, they're pissing themselves laughing at his failure.
Yeah, that is really bizarre.
So
I noticed that too. I was like, why are the kids laughing? They should at least look dejected and forlorn or something.
So that makes me feel a lot less bad for the little girl for this next thing that you and I have talked about for over 20 years since watching this.
Dude, okay, this is half the reason the podcast exists.
This one moment, this one.
I swear, because it's finding moments like this in movies that we have these questions that I don't think anyone else would even bother asking themselves.
No, and we key in on them, and I'm not trying to talk us up or brag or anything, but we key in on these things, and when I talk to anyone else about them, they
Yeah.
just they stare at me blankly, or they're like, "Oh, you're crazy." Like God help me if I tell
No,
my
I know
wife about any
it's
of
not a
this.
brag because we have even mutual friends who don't we'll talk to and they'll just be like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Yeah,
Right. So let's get into it. Let's unwrap this gift and talk about what we're actually talking about.
and for anyone who dares listen to this podcast, you need to, number one, obviously rewatch Willow, but
Yeah.
you have to get to this point and just pause it and let what we're about to talk about really sink in, and you embrace it mentally and just marinate that for a little bit. Okay.
Yeah. So do you want to describe what is happening?
Okay. I'll do my best and just jump in. Just jump in and fix
Yeah.
if I'm breaking it. All right. So the party's happening, and Willow's just completely shat the bed with his magic trick, and everyone's all upset. Those wolf hound thing or wolf hog things or whatever.
Yeah.
One of them comes into the village, and everyone's scared because it's this obviously big angry wolf thing. It's just it's tearing up like baby cribs and
Yeah.
cradles and shit, and Willow all of a sudden, like, he finds his son and he asks where their daughter is.
Right.
And this, like, I swear there are two possibilities. I know which one it is, but I have to point out the two possibilities. Number one, this little girl she's like this thespian ninja, and she was struggling the entire time, and the director kept saying, you need to find your inspiration. You need to find that moment. It's going to click, and you're going to become an amazing actress once it does. And then this was the moment. Or they told her some insidious, horrific things.
Yeah. So because I mean, if you to describe what we're talking about, she's stuck somewhere.
Yeah.
And kind of like in a pen or something. I don't know where. I can't remember where she is.
She's like right in the middle on this little island of stuff.
Yeah. And she's crying in a way that if you have children, you've seen children cry like this. And they'll cry like this for any stupid reason. But there's a terror to the tears of this little child. And we've always postulated, like, what did they say to her? Did they say that, hey, that dog over there, that's a real fucking wolf, and it's going to come kill your parents? Right. And just left her with that and just say, like, let's see what she does. Like, it's obviously it's a fake. Like, we know they're filming something else. They've told her something. And we've always wondered, what the fuck did they say to her to get her to react like that?
Now, my
my
other theory related to that, what if they didn't tell her what if they didn't tell her anything? And
that's a possibility.
And the adult actors knew, and they said, like, let's not tell the kids because we want them to be afraid. Like, we want them to look genuinely afraid, which is just cruelty at its most foul. And maybe it wasn't intended that way, but oh, good
I'm surprised
Lord.
she hasn't grown up to write an article at this, like a Medium post about how Ron Howard and George Lucas like abused her as a child. You know, like there's a story there to what was said, and I'm dying to know what the hell it was.
Fear privilege. Oh God. Yeah, that was
that's like a part of the genesis of this show is just we both hit it the same second because I remember we watched this one time just in around high school time, one of those 3 a.m, like, let's put on a movie because there's all the time in the fucking world and we can watch a movie at 3 a.m. with no consequence, right?
Oh God.
So and we both, because we both hadn't seen it for a while, we were just just goofing on. We're basically doing our own sort of mystery science theater bit on the movie, and we get to this part and we just both immediately like, what the fuck was that? We both were just shocked at how disturbed this child was, and since then we've talked about it all the time. Anytime Willow comes up, we don't not talk about that part.
That's one of the key parts that immediately comes to my mind is that little girl crying her life away, and just wondering.
It's something to behold.
and I promise you that's not something that's ever going to come out in like a Criterion edition behind the scenes, or like that. If anything, that's going to be something that comes out as like a Kotaku article about
Yes.
someone who knew someone, and
Right.
Ron Howard like secretly met with a few people in the production team and said like, I'm going to ruin this girl's life. Like that's
Yeah.
anyways, that was one of the defining moments of this movie for me, and I just had to point out like that there's so many possible reasons why she reacted the way they did. None of them are good. None of them
No,
are
and
good.
something was told to her, I think, or something like they had the wolf come in and pointed it out to her and said, "Look, it's a fucking wolf. Goodbye," and just like ran away or something. I don't know,
It eats little
but
girls.
yeah, it's yeah, specifically, it's nothing, nothing good. It's nothing good, whatever it is.
Oh God.
All right, so let's move on. What's the next? What's the next observation?
The next observation in my list here. So they embark on their journey, and they're traveling what seems to be across multiple continents because they're going through all these different
Yeah.
ecosystems, and they get to the crossroads.
Oh
And
wait, before that,
Yeah.
I just sorry. There was one thing I did notice. Beautiful matte painting on one of the shots when they're climbing up a hill.
yes,
Like it's sort of like like an angled hill, and they're on the side of it.
Yeah.
And in the background is all these gorgeous looking mountains. And watching that, I kind of remember like, God, I miss matte paintings. Like they never looked real, but they always looked beautiful.
yeah, it's definitely a lost art, isn't it?
Yeah, it's because it's all just CG now.
Yeah.
And you could have pterodactyls flying in the background or whatever. But there's something about those matte paintings that just always gets to my heart like right away when I see them.
Well,
But I wanted to make sure I gave props to that because it's such a cool one.
I mean, on that, like a lot of movies from that era, that's a particular feel that I don't think we're ever going to get again from a movie. Like
No.
there were quite a few movies that used that back in the day, and
Yeah.
like when you look back on it now, you can appreciate it. At the time, it was the best you could get for special effects, but it is beautiful and it's a lost art. And it's kind of sad now that you're talking about that I don't think we're going to see that again. Like that's done with computers.
Not unless it's on purpose. Like
Yeah.
if someone creatively wants to put them in, that's one thing. But yeah, they won't be done. It's the same thing of why so many movies from that era looks the way it does, and it has something to do with. And I don't know the specifics of this, but there's a film stock they used to use back then, a specific numbered film stock
Okay.
that they would film movies with, and that's why so many movies from the '80s have this same weird look to them that you cannot replicate, even when you're trying to. Like when they made Super 8, the J.J. Abrams movie set in
Yeah.
the '80s, it's so crisp and clear, and it feels so modern that I just never bought that it was even that time frame.
Right.
But because there's something so special about that film stock, and I can't remember the name of it or anything like that, but there's that to me is part of it. It's like matte paintings that shitty matte lines, like whenever you see people superimposed, and we'll get to that shit. Yeah, but there's just so many things that are intrinsically '80s specific things,
Yeah.
and I do miss them. Sorry. So anyway, you were at the crossroads.
Sorry, yeah. So they make it to the crossroads, and the whole point. And people obviously have seen this movie. They're going there to find a daikini to give this daikini baby to take care of.
Yeah.
So the wizard in the village before, like when they were in that group house planning the trip, he specifically told everyone this baby is truly special. This baby is special and important. And they get to the crossroads, and they are literally going to give it to the first asshole over 5 feet tall. They're just
Well, I think that was his instruction, wasn't it?
it,
Didn't the wizard tell him to do that?
yeah, which like it's supposed to be a special baby. Like this
Yeah.
baby is truly special. Just give it to some random piece of crap.
Right.
Okay.
So that's his fault.
What? But oh man.
Yeah, but I get the idea. The idea that they're selling there is it's because this movie, at its core, this movie is a patchwork of a million different ideas that you've seen before.
Yeah.
So there's like Star Wars, the guy with the skull mask, who's obviously Darth Vader. Like there's all kinds of shit like that. And one of this part of it, the Nelwyns altogether are hobbits, obviously. And like the whole thing about hobbits is they don't want to interfere with the affairs of the world, and they don't want the world to interfere with them. So that's what they're trying to sell with this. But then that's fine. but don't have him say that the baby's special before that. And be like, this baby is so special. When you see the first piece of shit on the side of the road, I want you to give this baby to that motherfucker. And I don't give a fuck what happens after that. He could kill that baby right in front of you. You get your ass back here. You know, like it's such a weird contradiction.
Don't even hand the baby over. Just throw it.
Yeah.
Just toss it.
Or, you know, I mean, maybe the wizard was, you know, he knew that Mad Mortigan was going to be, you know, good at heart and all. Who knows? Right?
Maybe there's some like. Yeah,
that's how you could explain it away, I guess.
Yeah, he had some prophecy that he knew he was going to meet with that person who was. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I thought that was funny. It just.
Yeah,
like,
no, it was.
Handed the first piece of shit you find and then just get back. Like, okay, special baby, there you go.
I know.
Well, actually, and that kind of reminds me of, and I totally skipped it over, but when that way back when that laundry lady took the baby and was going to get attacked by the wolves, she, number one, like, she should have made the Titanic. She made this little raft in a matter of seconds that has withstood the test of time. Like, it went down rapids and everything and held together. You just put this like, no coyotes or eagles or any other animals, like a bear fishing for salmon's going to find this little tasty morsel and eat it. You just shove it down a river and it somehow makes it over the rapids. Like,
it's a little too perfect and convenient. They could have handled that in a different, better way.
Like, I know the suspension of disbelief. I get that, but I just it kind of, because right near the end when it settles at the shore, it goes over, like, you see these rapids that would probably throw me over a raft, and it just drifts down, no problem. Like, that, Jesus.
Yeah, that's a little bizarre.
Oh God. All right, back to the crossroads. So the army comes and they're going by and they try to talk. And this is another one of those moments, like the little girl crying, that stands out to me. The guy at the front of the army who they ask, he must have been like, just, he was trying to get into like classical Shakespearean theater, but this is the only gig he could get to pay his bills. Because the way he says, he goes, "Out of the way, Peck." Like, he just...
I love that. Out of the way, Pick.
It's like he thinks he's King Lear, and he's he's delivering this like a thespian. Ron Howard's like,
he's like, this is
Ron Howard is like, okay, let's do another cut of this. Is like, I do not do another cut. I am a thespian.
Or just he nailed it. Like, he's like, this is my big chance. He rehearsed that line for 6 months, and then when Ron Howard yelled action. And he's like, "Out of the way, Peck!" And Howard's like just standing there with his jaw hanging open. Like, that's perfect. That's, man, close the gate. We got it. You know, and they just moved on because this guy, like, you're never going to get a better take than that. But yeah, I love that, the way he says that line. There's a couple line deliveries in the movie that I find, there's another one we'll talk about it later that cracks me up every time.
That's the one for me though. It's just, "Out of the way, Peck." Just hammers that shit out. And okay, so this kind of leads to something that a part of the story that I get, but it kind of bugs me. So Eric and his army have just had the shit beaten out of them, and they're on full retreat. They're going to keep fighting, but he finds Mad Mortigan in the crow's cage. I'm sure there's some personal stuff going on. There clearly is. It's alluded to, right?
Yeah.
At the same time, you have to assume that Eric knows how good a fighter Mad Mortigan is.
Right.
Do you not, under the circumstances though? The circumstances, do you not think he would have wanted to get a fighter of that caliber to join them after what happened?
It's a weird moment because they have this sort of shared, like, look at this fucking guy. I knew you'd be in trouble someday, you piece of shit, right? And it feels kind of lighthearted. Yeah. And then at the end, he's like, "Let me out of here." He's like, "Go fuck yourself. You could die and starve in that cage, you asshole." And then he like rides away. I'm like, whoa. Like, I thought they were gently ribbing each other for a bit there. And then it's like, no, I'm gonna keep you summoned to the cruelest possible death I could imagine. So weird. They're very strange with Mad Mortigan altogether. Like, what is he and why is he such a great swordsman if he's just a thief?
Yeah.
You know, and other things like, the movie's not, it's such a patchwork. It's like, here's your Han Solo, right? That's really all it comes down to.
Yeah.
And Han Solo is a smuggler, but he's also awesome, and at heart he's a good person and everything like that. And he's a rogue and whatnot. And for the record, might I add, I mean, I'd forgotten what a beautiful son of a bitch Val Kilmer in the '80s used to be. Jesus Christ!
I was just saying that, like, just even my wife, like, because I watched it with my wife there, and even she made a comment like, "Is that Val Kilmer?"
Like, my God. I mean, I know he's suffered he's had a very tragic turn in his life because I think he had throat cancer.
Yeah.
And I think he's lost his voice. Like, I think they did the full, like, Roger Ebert on him.
Yeah.
In terms of surgery. So, like, that's the worst. That's the worst. I mean, he was already turning into a weird toadish looking person before that. But that's just awful. And to see him back in that, like, oh my God, as a man with a unblemished record of heterosexuality, like, I'm just looking at this guy going, this guy is just, I could look at him all day.
That chiseled face, the body, the hair, like even the hair in that, he was
Yeah.
he was this like swashbuckling pirate of a stud. And
one of the best casting I think anyone's ever done.
He did a great job with the role. Like
and it also shows that he used to be a pretty damn good actor.
He was like he was in quite a few movies that no one talks about, but I kind of enjoyed. I haven't tried watching like The Saint. I haven't tried watching that recently.
Yeah.
I remember not thinking it was too bad back in the day.
I remember enjoying it. Yeah.
He was,
but I'd have to see it again to see if that one holds up at all.
No, I can't believe I'm asking this question, but he was Batman, right?
Yes, he was the Batman in Batman Forever.
That's right. Yeah.
The one before the infamous Batman and Robin.
The one with the nipples in the suit. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and he only got one shot at it because from what I've heard, Val Kilmer was a fucking nightmare to work with.
Oh, it was pretty difficult guy.
Yeah, that's the story that came out from that documentary about what's it called, Island of Dr. Moreau. I forget the name of the documentary now, but it was apparently he's just a real big piece of shit, and I could believe it because by then his stock had gone up and then it hadn't quite taken the downturn yet. So
right.
And plus this is post Doors, right? The Doors
just
blew him up because I mean he is Jim Morrison. You look at his fucking face and you're like, this guy's Jim Morrison. That's the craziest. I can't think of anyone else to cast on anything else better than that.
Yeah, that was was eerie.
They look like separated at birth.
Speaking and that kind of that actually that little bit of, that little booger nugget of him being difficult kind of leads into another observation I had. So he ended up marrying what's her name?
Joanne Wally.
Yeah.
She was Joanne Wally Kilmer at some point.
Yes, he ended up marrying her.
Yeah.
Obviously they divorced. So I'm not surprised now. But I had the absolute biggest crush on her in that movie, and even watching it now, like that's 22 years old. She is a smoke show in that movie.
Wait, what are you talking about? 22 years old? The movie came out in 88.
Yeah.
88, 98, 2008, 2018. It's 32 years old.
Shit! Wow, I'm.
You know what it is? Because we're so fucking.
I'm clearly an engineer here.
Yeah, we're so old that time has no meaning anymore.
Or maybe it was a subconscious arithmetic issue. Like my brain is trying to protect me from the fact that I'm an old piece of shit. It's like
totally.
it was like 22 years ago.
Thing.
Don't worry, 32 years. That makes it even worse. But anyway, so 32 years ago, and looking at it, even compared to today's standards of beauty, she was absolutely beautiful in that movie. Like
there's something about her, man, because I watched it the same way you did, because I had the same crush when I was a kid, and watching it now, I'm like, I might not feel it exactly the same now, but I absolutely understand why I did.
Yeah,
there's a look to her that is so, even because among Hollywood women, one of the things about them, especially back then, is they kind of started to look the same. Like there's very little variance between them, and she's just got such a weird, unique look to her.
It's those giant doe eyes and the long red hair. Like that was a good look.
Oh, I was all about that shit. I mean, just all about it. And even this time, I'm like, oh man, when she's wearing the white nightgown thing and shit, like I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm understanding this.
Yeah, I'm gonna steal your baby.
So, yeah. And you could tell, like, this is one of the things I observed, is the looks they give each other. You could tell these two people fell in love on the set of this movie.
Yeah.
Like, they're not just acting. Like, these people are into each other.
Yeah, I think that gave you could tell there was chemistry between the two of them, and that must have been where it came from. Like she was legitimately in love with this guy.
And who could blame her? God damn it! I mean, the sexy son of a bitch. Jesus.
I was in love with him. Jesus,
Yeah.
those fucking smoking eyes and pouty lips.
Let's move on before we
Sorry,
drag this into the. Gotta make a whole different podcast for that.
Anyways, I bring Joanne Wally up because if you look her up in Google, you look at images of her. This is going to sound terrible. She's held up relatively well, but if you Google search her, the first image that comes up of her is the absolute worst photograph you could ever show of a human being.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Because of course, I did the same search that you did because I'm like, I wonder what she's looking like. It's like, and it's you're right. It's not fair because there are other pictures of her currently.
Yeah,
that look they just look like her aged. Like they look like as a woman like that would look now if she had aged 32 years.
Which is stunning and beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, right. But the first one that you see, I think it's even attached to like her Wikipedia page
yes,
or something.
Yeah, that's the one.
It's the most dog shit picture. And I'm amazed that celebrities don't at some point say like to Wikipedia, like you can't use that picture. You have to use a better, like offer them some kind of promotional headshot or something. Because that's a terrible photograph for her.
Oh, man. Yeah, I noticed that when I was looking her up last night. I'm like, that is disturbing.
Yeah, it was. And then, which led me to think, oh, she really fell off the cliff. But then looking at more pictures, I'm like, oh, no, she just aged like a human being would age. And a human being who clearly hasn't destroyed herself with multiple, surgeries.
We won't get into actresses who've done that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'd be here all day, all year. All right, so what we got? What's up next?
What's up next? Okay, so here's something to noodle in your heads for a bit, okay? So the brownies steal the baby from Mad Mortigan, and Willow and and his wonderfully useful friend.
That guy.
Anyways,
we've done the best we can, Willow. We should just go home now. Like, oh, shut the fuck up. Useless piece of crap.
So they chase the baby. They get caught, and then the floating. I don't know what the fuck she even is supposed to be.
Again, it's just this is something from other movies that we've seen. We're going to throw it in this movie.
Yeah, just
right. That's it. It's all she is.
But she's supposed to be beautiful, but it's like that overshot white light that is clearly hiding a whole bunch of stuff. And and there's a scene when she gets really serious about how, like, if you don't take care of this baby, the entire world is going to end, and you and your family and everyone you love and your village are going to burn in hell and then have a shit taken on them and then burn again. Her face, like, her mouth doesn't move during that part. I guess she's talking into his brain.
In his brain, yeah.
But she has this terrifying look in her face. I was not a fan of that chick at all. But
no, I wasn't either.
That kind of leads me to, so when they first show up there and the baby is there, the fairy woman calls Willow by his name, and Willow's like, how did you know my name? And she said, well, Elora told me. So the baby, now I want you to really think about this for a second. And again, if there's a simple explanation to it, I'll go for it. It's fine. But the baby has, this little baby has a level of consciousness and self identity where they can understand what someone's name is and then communicate that name to someone else.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I never really, because I just assumed it was meant as like a whimsical thing of like, I can hear babies.
Oh, no, absolutely. But the baby, think about that. The baby has the mental capacity to know, oh, this dude's name is Willow. People should refer to this person as Willow. I am now going to tell this strange woman what that person's name is and how much I like them. That baby has that level of consciousness. Do they have that for everything? Like, is that baby lying there going like, oh, here it comes. I just shit myself again. I'm stewing in my own shit. I'm just lying here in my own filth.
Yeah,
like,
is no one going to change this motherfucking diaper? What's going on here?
Yeah, like...
I don't... It is weird. Yeah, it's again, it's that thing of, it's cute to have a baby say someone's name. But then, yeah, it creates all these questions of like, well, how aware is she of what? Is she aware of this because has that fucking tattoo on her arm and she's the baby of the prophecy, or is she just, do all babies do this all the time and only the woman in the woods can hear it, and she's probably driven mad by the sounds of babies, I have no mouth and I must scream fucking nightmares that they have all the time. That's her curse, to live in the woods and just hear babies complain about shit that no one's taking care of.
It's like Professor Xavier with Cerebro, but instead of hearing like the thoughts, all she hears is babies. She has to like close them out of her mind constantly. Dull it
That's
with
why she got
alcohol.
so serious, like, because she turns like a date you just said the wrong thing to. Like, she just goes so cold.
She does, yeah.
It's brutal.
Like, you're gonna take care of the baby, this beautiful baby. If you don't, you're gonna fucking die.
Yeah, pretty much.
Whoa, hey.
Yeah, that was
Take it
crazy.
easy.
But yeah, it's man, that is a weird thing to bring up, because you're right. What does that mean for the lore, which again is not very well fleshed out. It just isn't. It's just not. And you find that as you go through the movie that this is just kind of, we've seen other things that are popular and we know how they got popular, so we're just going to throw it all in here.
But it's throwing it in without putting any thought behind it. It's throwing it in because you think you should have it versus you should have it.
Right. I mean, that she doesn't even need to exist. Why couldn't the wizard from the village just be like, take this fucking wand? Right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to have that whole thing with her. It's there's this lack of efficiency in storytelling, because I'm so obsessed with efficiency in storytelling. If you have two characters doing the same thing, just give it to one character.
Yeah.
And you've already got a wizard, so you've already got a mystical element. You don't need another one, right? But then I guess that's just, again, it's just throw it in because, hey, it's a kitchen sink, man. Like, just put it all in there. Well, do you have a note about the brownies at all? Because I want to park on them for a second.
I have a couple of notes about the brownies, and
all right, give me yours, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, the first one, and I don't know why this bothers me more than anything else. One of the two main brownies that go on the journey is named Frenchie.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He has an exaggerated French accent.
Yeah. Like, that's dumb.
Does this ancient world, this ancient fantasy mystical world, have a nation of France with French people speaking French?
Yeah, like I remember I always thought the accent was weird because I knew it was supposed to be French, and I always thought that's weird that he would have a French accent, but I forgot that his name was Frenchie. That's so stupid.
His name was Frenchie with the French accent. Like, clearly they were going for something. If they didn't call him Frenchie, but he had that weird accent, I would just chalk it up to whatever. It's he has to have a funny accent, but they called him Frenchie.
Yeah, the Frenchie is the double down on the idea that this is like a French ass weird brownie guy, which is dumb. And the other one has an accent too, but it's not French. It's just a different accent.
Yeah.
So I just want to park on the brownies for a minute. I fucking hate these things, okay? And it's always, do you have this moment in movies where you watch a movie that you like, but there's something in your heart that tells you, yeah, I like it, but I don't love it. And you kind of forget why.
Yeah.
And then you get to a moment in that movie, you're like, oh fuck, that's why. This is the moment in the movie for me. When those fucking brownies show up with their shit matte lines and their bullshit blue screen effects, I'm just like, oh fuck these things. They suck. They are so Frenchie and again, like I don't know, I forget the name of the other one, but the two brownies, that's Willow's C-3PO and R2-D2. Oh, I mean, it's transparently so.
It's blatant. And
that's just, again, that's Lucas just hanging around, swinging his dick around, going, oh, so we need two crazy things that are like goofs, but also end up being crucial to the plot because I need that in everything because I saw a Kurosawa, I saw The Hidden Fortress and I loved it. So, like, that's every movie he does that with, and it's like, enough already, dude. We get it. You saw a Japanese movie once. Like, fuck off.
Yeah, they did, and I understand what their purpose was. They were the comic relief. They weren't partitherly funny. Like they didn't really achieve.
No, they're not. They're George Lucas funny. Like that's the problem. And again, we should have. When you look at episode 1, right, and then you go back and you look at the body of work that George Lucas produced between '83 and episode 1, All the warning signs were there. He was telling us everything he did. He was telling us, this movie's going to suck because I don't understand what's funny or entertaining anymore. And every time it's like Howard the fucking Duck, these stupid brownie things, like Ewok Adventures and all that shit. Like, it's just terrible shit that's the stuff he was kind of getting into.
Well, I mean, what else happened in that time frame? He started adopting kids, right?
I thought he just got divorced and had the kids. I thought that's how that, because Spielberg is the adopter, right?
Oh, I thought George Lucas adopted.
He may have. I don't remember, but I do know that his wife left him with 2 kids, and that changed everything. Right? Well, that totally changed his life.
The bottom line is that, much like in my life, kids ruin everything and are a constant source of sadness and just hatred of everything joyous in the universe. So
yeah,
but yeah, so they were supposed to be the comic relief, and I don't mean to continuously compare it to episode 4, but it was clearly modeled after that, like just the characters and the structure. R2-D2 and C3PO had a dynamic that it fit into the story.
Yeah.
And it was funny within that boundary. Like it was funny because it fit properly. These guys were very clearly trying to be funny where it doesn't require it and it doesn't fit. Like the
only thing that I laughed that they did was the rat dream. That kind of made me laugh for some reason when he's like rats like that. I thought that was funny because it seemed like a concern that someone of that size might have.
But like, okay, so and I'm going to get to this in a second. The cart chase where they're running away from the bar in the cart and they're being chased by Bav Morta's soldiers, like that. They're playing that as a very serious situation. And then these brownies are like running around, like dodging apples, like oh my god.
It is the Jar Jar effect of just like, we need this comedic relief to undermine every serious thing that's happening in every scene, and it drives me fucking crazy.
Yeah. But okay, so speaking of the cart chase, I want you to noodle this one around your brain for a second, okay?
Yeah.
You know how like the enemy had bows and arrows. They were firing arrows. They had the shuriken the size of a medium-sized dog. It's like a frisbee shuriken.
And they have one. They threw one. Does the whole army just have this one shuriken? Because they never use it, and it was almost worked. So like, just get another one and try it again.
That's their nuclear deterrent. They like each squadron carries one, and they're like, if this thing fucking hits.
And there's like a munitions boy that has to go back like years later and try to retrieve all the shurikens that were misplaced.
These cost a lot to make. But okay, just rewind this back to I want to go back to the bar, and there's a scene when Frenchie falls into the beer, and I think he gets hit with the love dust,
right? And
he falls in love with a cat.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, your eyes, your whiskers, you're so beautiful," and the cat meows at him in anger. Yeah. That, more than any other moment in the movie, I noticed the absolute fucked up, like stuttered, slow motion animation.
The cat lags. Like, it just fucking lags. It's the stupidest thing. Yeah, I've always noticed that. It's like, and it does this weird, like stop motion, slow motion shit.
The jittery meow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that actually reminds me of like. The whole idea of that love dust, that would obviously not work today. I'm surprised Willow hasn't been criticized for it because
I mean, I just don't think it's important enough for people to pay attention to.
Yeah, no, but just like I bring it up just because there's that one scene where Mad Mortigan gets hit with the love dust and then goes and falls in love with Sorsha, but like he gets hit with it. The people who are with him at the time are the 2 male brownies and the male Willow. And there's the movie, there's no danger whatsoever of him falling in love with any of them.
Right.
It's only
that's the thing, because
it's only meant for the opposite sex.
Right. They show with the stupid fucking brownie that the effect it has is you fall in love with the first thing you see.
Yeah.
Not even a person, a thing. Anything that has a heartbeat, you fall in love with. So he gets hit with it. He should be looking at Willow and going like, man, I'm going to take your little ass. And, like, just who knows, right? But
I'm going to use you like a fleshlight.
Yeah, seriously. But it doesn't work that well. All of a sudden now it's very specifically geared to, like, he sees like 10 people before he sees her.
I'm assuming that Frenchie falls in love with a female cat, although we don't know.
We will never,
We will never know. But I just...
Let's just say it's different for humans. It affects humans differently.
Yeah.
Who knows? But yeah, it would definitely be a problem now. If this was a bigger movie, a more popular movie, we'd be talking about that for sure.
I need to I forgot to do this at the beginning. I need to give a shout out to the score.
Oh yeah.
That I was just thinking about this. Like that the do 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 do.
Yeah.
Like that is so memorable. Like I hear that and it's instant recall to the movie and everything that happens in it. And I just
James Horner, man, pour one out for James Horner, like one of the best composers that ever worked in the business.
Like I was just, it's an amazing score that really, it really does hold up. It's one of the things that does hold up about it more than anything else.
I like almost all his scores. I've had soundtracks for them in the past.
What else?
I think Avatar is one of his best scores ever.
He did the score for Avatar?
Yeah, he did.
Shit, I didn't know that.
I'll give you a rundown of a couple. He's done Avatar. He did Aliens, the second one.
Okay.
He did Star Trek 2 and 3. He did, what else has he done? He's done like he did like the Patriot games, and he's done so many. He's one of those guys that it's like the Hans Zimmer effect, where Hans Zimmer does every goddamn movie now.
Yeah.
He was that between the 80s and 90s. He did fucking everything. So you've heard his scores a billion times. Okay, well, and they're always good. Some are standout amazing, but they're always good. You're never going to get a bad score out of him.
Yeah, clearly there's a reason why he was doing them.
Yeah.
Doing them all. Okay. So that makes sense. But yeah, that was a very memorable score. I love it.
But we've skipped a whole bunch. We've skipped to the end here, but we'll double back and get to the other stuff. I got a lot to say about fucking Finn Razel and the amazing animal talking effects in this movie that are just out of this fucking world.
Was it a possum? My favorite was the possum.
The possum.
I think it was a possum.
The possum with the cartoon mouth.
Yeah.
Right. Which is, I'll take that. That's not bad. That's like pre-Babe sort of, this is the best we've got technology. And because it's small enough, it works enough without being totally like Roger Rabbit ridiculous.
Yeah.
But then when she turns into the goat, it's just like, I don't know, give the goat some fucking food and we'll just film it. And the goat's just chewing cud, and it's just like, let's have her talk now. It's the worst, you know. I would rather she had like a thought that like you could hear like an echo when she spoke, so that you could tell it's going right into people's minds or something.
Yeah.
But having the goat thing is like, what is this, Mr. Ed? I didn't like that at all. But the cartoon mouth didn't look great, but it worked enough. But yeah, once you get to the goat, it's just like, oh Jesus, this is just terrible. But yeah. So that was, so I had a logical question about when they get Finn Razel, they bring her back from that, the island that is like 5 feet away from the shore that she could easily have probably swam.
Yes.
I don't know if possums can swim, but if they can, then she should have just swam it because it's not that far. So then the soldiers come, and it looks like Mad Mortigan has sold all of them out.
Yeah,
which they don't really establish whether that's what happened or not.
They do. So the guard immediately says, "See, we told you we'd find them without your help."
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So that's a big thing to kind of overlook when they make up and be friends. It's like by the way, you almost fucked this whole thing up, So that was bizarre. But here's the weird thing I always wonder is. So they're gathering all the people. They got the baby. They're taking Willow prisoner.
Yeah.
Why does the guy grab the fucking possum? It's just a possum. The guy grabs the possum and puts it in a sack. Like, bring that possum, God damn it! And I don't like Sorcia's not even there. I don't think. So it's not like she would, because maybe Sorcia would be told by Bavmorda, like, oh, watch out for crazy looking animals because it could be this Finn Razel bitch. But she's not there. As far as I remember,
true.
She's not there.
That's true.
So it's just really weird that the guy, and then not only that, so they grab the stupid possum. Then later on, they show them marching, and the possum has its own special cage they constructed for it. Like, what the fuck? You know, like, that is really bizarre to me.
That's an excellent point. Like I don't think Queen Bavmorda even knew, right?
Well,
Like,
because isn't she the one who changed her into an animal?
yeah,
Isn't that how so she knew that she was a possum.
yeah, but she didn't know that the soldiers were gonna find the Willow and the baby at that
Right.
particular
Yeah.
location.
Oh, yeah.
right?
No, that's what I mean. So that's why. Like, even if I could accept, maybe if Sorsha had been there, and at some point Bavmorda had told her, "Hey, in your travels, you might come across a possum that talks some shit." Like, that's Finn Rizal, and make sure you capture her ass. Because she's gonna fuck things up. But they don't even establish that. It's just this soldier, for some reason, like, I want to take this possum and hold it for ransom or whatever the hell he's thinking. But that's ridiculous enough. But when they construct this special cage, that's what I'm like, okay, what's happening here? Why do they even know this? That's strange. Like, because not only that, but Mad Mornigan wasn't there either when Willow discovered that Finn Rizal was a possum. If a possum starts talking when you're capturing other people, I guess your first instinct is like, better grab that too. I don't know, but yeah, that struck me as weird when they did that.
So I need to go to this the animation when the brownies are picking the lock. When they're in the mountaintop, they're
yes.
Even by the day's standards, the effects that was a bad cut. Like, Ron, he did a bad job cutting that, because it looked like they were basically standing around in front of a big screen with Val Kilmer's face on it. Like, it looked so bad.
Yeah.
even worse than the other effects in the movie. Like, it really piqued my interest.
The other weird thing is they like rotoscoped the stick he's using.
Yes.
So it's also animated. Like, why didn't you just give him a real stick? It's a terrible, like, it's so weird. Like, the brownies are so ill-conceived on all levels, and every minute they show you why they're the stupidest idea, because it's like the technology wasn't even there for them.
No, it really wasn't, and it was because, like, there, and I'm jumping ahead just really briefly, but like with the two-headed dragon monster thing, like, when Mad Mortigan jumps on top of one of the heads, it has it's very indicative of the era, right? Like, I remember RoboCop when RoboCop jumped on top of Ed 209, it was that same animation, and I'm okay with that.
Yes,
like, that I was okay with. It was this particular scene that really struck me as, like, this is so obvious that you're based, like, this could basically be these two guys standing in a room with black drapes and, like, a big projection screen showing Val Kilmer's face on it.
Yeah.
It looked so bad.
I know. And that's I think a key point to almost all special effects of the era, is that where it always falls apart is blending. Like, when things are on, like, okay, take the Rancor, for example. Rancor looks fantastic on its own, right? Even when it's picking up, like, the Warring Guard and putting it in its mouth. But as soon as you cut to someone running in front of it and you get that shit matte screen effect, it's terrible. It's like, I don't know how they could get around it. They can't, I guess. But it just, it always ruins the whole effect every time. And the problem with the brownies is that it's a constant effect. Like, that's their whole effect, basically, is that they're just in front of people that aren't there. And it looks awful. And this is a very key point of when and how it looks bad.
And speaking of the brownies, I was thinking about this. So, once again, the one guy, he uses, and it's always the same thing. There's Frenchie, and then there's the other guy. That's how memorable the other brownie was.
Let's call him Gaston.
But, like, Gaston. So Gaston decides it's a really good idea to smack Mad Mortigan in the face with a pouch of love dust. It kind of got me thinking, why in every pillar of fuck do the brownies have love dust to begin with? What is the strategic value of this thing in their day-to-day lives? Why does he have this? Why does it cause so many issues for them throughout the entire movie? What the hell's the purpose of the love dust? Did I miss something? Was there some dialogue in where he's like, "We use it to get fairies"? Like,
they just have it. They just have it for some reason.
They just have it.
Yeah.
And it causes no end of issues.
Yeah, that is really stupid, because Why would the only thing I can think of, again, this is me trying to like fill in logic gaps that the movie fails to do, is if you were a full grown ass person and you employed a brownie to go throw the dust on like someone because they're so small they could sneak in and do that for you, right? But then again, it's like just say that in like one line, and that would at least explain why they would have it. But yeah, it doesn't make any sense that they would have that, and it's so problematic, and it causes such a headache all the time, and it's also inconsistent with how it reacts to people. It's just it's a stupid idea. I hate the brownies so fucking much. I can't stress that enough. We can't leave this mountain yet because some magical shit happens on this mountain that we have to address. Okay.
I was okay. There's one thing. There's two things actually before we get to that magical moment.
Yeah.
And they both happen on the mountain and they really strike me. Okay. So number one, do you find, and just this is an opinion thing. It doesn't. I'm not looking for an answer, a specific answer. Do you find that the entire love story between Madmortigan and Sorsha is cheapened by the fact that it's initiated by the powder, or do you kind of lean towards the powder just enhanced feelings that were already there and forced him to act on them?
Yeah, I feel like he simply didn't have the time really to establish any kind of affection for her, and the powder just accelerated what would have come naturally had they been given the chance. And I think that she's just down to fuck, so like she's on board with whatever he says, because when they're riding towards Theater's thing, she's like, "You said you loved me," like she's like all like pissed off that he betrayed her and shit. And I think that's the case. I think she just always wants to fuck him, but I mean, again, because it's Val Kilmer in the '80s, and we all do. But yeah, that's all. I think the powder facilitates his affection, but it doesn't cause it, as far as I can tell.
Yeah,
it's all
that's true, because even when they're in the tent and Kane comes in, going like, "What's going on here?" She wasn't mad that the stranger was in the tent, like acting all weird.
Right.
She was pissed off. She was like, "Deceiver!
Yeah.
You told me you wanted to bone this, but you lied."
It's only when she looks at the crib and sees the baby gone that she's like, "Oh, this is what you were doing all along."
Yes. Yeah. All right.
Oh wait, before we leave the tent though, the line read is my second favorite line read in the my favorite line read in the movie. The other one I like is the rat's dream, the laugh out loud moment. Is when he's like, come be with me, and then he reaches to the sky, he's like, "Tonight we."
Yes,
it's the best. It is the best. I love that so much.
He sells that shit.
Like it's just that is the greatest moment. Like and it
tonight.
Yeah, it just shows how silly the whole thing is, but that's fantastic. So then they run out of he chops the tent down and everything, and then. Do you find this? I hate this moment too, where he's like, he does like 5 swings of his sword basically, and then Willow's like, "You're the best ever." Like
he swung a sword, but I think it's more chalked up to the fact that the soldiers attacking him are fucking awful. Like Bavmorda needs to really pay more for her soldiers because these guys, like, their strategy that Willow thought was fantastic was to run at Madmortigan with the sword in the air, their arms up high, and absolutely nothing protecting their midsections, or to take a light kick to the back and then fall over like it's a Three Stooges skit.
There's stormtroopers with swords, basically. Like, they're so ineffective.
Like, he barely did anything. Yeah. And you are great. No, he's not.
Terrible.
Like, he could do some shit, but he's not great.
Yeah.
That line kind of annoyed me because I was just thinking, he's not that good.
And then the forced I
could do better than that.
And the forced comedy that happens immediately after that, where he just flips the sword and then falls for no fucking reason.
He slipped for no reason. Yeah. There's nothing under him. He didn't hit an ice patch. He just he literally throws his leg out from under him.
Yeah, it's I all that forced, again, it's that George Lucas forced humor shit that always falls apart for me.
Now, okay, so here's a thought: is it? Or do you think Val Kilmer tried to do certain things in this movie that were like a Harrison Ford in Raiders of the Lost Ark, where it's going to be a big fight, but he's feeling bad and he just pulls out his gun and shoots, and it's like, oh, that's great improv.
Yeah.
Let's stick with that.
I think that's probably some of it. Like, I don't think him falling was improv because it's such a forced moment. I don't know. Maybe it is. Who knows? Maybe the story is that because you know what it is. Now that I think about it, it is weird because he just falls, and he actually falls like below the camera line, like the
Yes.
So maybe it really wasn't supposed to happen. I don't know because he just if you were going to do that, you would do a longer shot of a full person falling, but he actually falls out of frame. So maybe it wasn't planned.
And then it kind of cuts to him getting up off the
Yeah.
ground.
So who knows, man? Maybe that was the case. That it was just like, yeah, I'm going to try some roguish swashbuckling tomfoolery here, and
But
that's.
I mean,
But anyway,
we're dancing around this.
yeah, let's
and
move on to the Shield because this is
Um,
fantastic.
why don't you and just context before you lead us into it. I have been watching this movie more times than I can count
Yeah.
for over 30 years.
Yeah.
I did not notice this until you pointed it out 2 days ago, and I feel like everything I knew about the world
Yeah.
it isn't real anymore.
Yeah. So it's and maybe it's just the sort of side effects of HD now, like is that we just can see things so clearly now. But I didn't have to stop it or anything. I saw it as soon as I watched it. I'm like, oh my god! So they get on the shield. So it's Willow in front, Mad Mortigan on the back, and they're sliding down this mountain on basically a toboggan. And again, I know why this happened because there's obviously safety concerns strapping a little person to a toboggan and launching them down Mount Everest. So obviously, some kind of stunt replacement was required. What they came up with was, from what I could tell, a styrofoam head put on a broomstick and given a terrible wig. Because, my God, when they start flying around with that thing, and his head's just like it's the stiffest board you could ever see, and the eyes, like they just basically painted 2 white spots and then put black dots in the middle for eyes on this thing. It's something to see, and I put it on the show's Instagram if anyone cares to follow that and look at that. It's phenomenal, and it's once I've seen it, I can't unsee it ever again. It just every time there's a long shot of a toboggan going towards a perilous situation, you can bet your ass that it's going to be this terrible dummy, and the way it just kind of like doesn't move, and it's so clearly obvious, and I don't know how. For most of my life, I didn't know this was the case, and
I just, but after you pointed it out, it's so obvious.
I do love.
It's
There's
so
one
obvious.
part that is actually surprisingly authentic. In contrast to that, is when they do a close up of Willow, and the noise he makes going down this hill is the kind of when you're on a roller coaster that goes down fast, you make this noise. He's like, yeah, like he's just out of control of his facilities. And I thought that was hilarious. I'm like, man, that seems like they really pushed him down a steep hill.
Well, there was one scene in that entire toboggan ride that just while we're talking about the other end of the spectrum, the bad end where the brownies picking the lock, like that was the worst special effects ever. There was, and I don't know if it's special effects or if it was just a long shot. I don't know how they did it, but when Mad Mortigan gets tossed from the shield, there's a scene of him rolling on the snow behind as Willow continues, and I thought that looked really good. Like it looked like he had been tossed, and Willow continues to go down. I don't know if he did, or if there was just some weird sort of
I think
screen
he's there.
stuff
Like,
happening.
I think what my guess would be is that they probably had Warwick Davis on like a snowmobile at the back, and they were just speeding down the hill, and then because it doesn't even look like it's sped up. It looks genuine, but he's obviously not on a toboggan. But he's probably on something that's being driven down the hill, and then a stuntman flies off and rolls around. But it is it's a very good cut, and it's very convincing. Which is hilarious because again, we're contrasting that with the fact that they have the worst dummy you could ever imagine for some of these other parts. And when he's going to slide into the village, and it's just that last shot of him before he hits the cabin, and it's just like this solitary dummy on a toboggan. That is some magical shit. Like I can't believe that I had not noticed that before. Beautiful moment. Oh, I love it.
There is one part of it. So the last part before the dummy on the shield gets to the village is that's the part with the head that kind of bobs around.
Yeah.
At least it has blonde hair. There's one before that where it almost looks like the dummy has black hair. Like it's not even Willow's hair. It looks like this short mop cut
Yep.
on a white styrofoam
Oh,
ball.
it's incredible. Like it really, it's again, these people who made these movies were not planning on them being seen in 40 years in this kind of condition. Like it just wasn't.
But okay,
You know?
but considering how many little people were in the movie and how many of them clearly had never acted nor would they ever desire acting in the future, you're telling me you couldn't find one of them to say like hey here's an extra 50. Can we push you down a hill on a
So
toboggan?
you're saying they should have sacrificed a little person to maintain the integrity of the shot?
Now I'm not saying
Okay,
sacrifice.
all right. Convinced
I'm
at great peril.
I'm just saying pay them enough so when they die doing the stunt, their families will be taken
Yeah,
care
I think
of.
that's reasonable. I don't know why they couldn't do that.
Yeah.
But
So yeah,
right. So moving on from this blessed moment,
yes.
let's get to
Yeah.
what's next? They're walking towards
Well,
Kerosene.
Well, no, let's just really quickly stick to that little village
Oh yeah.
in the middle of nowhere. Number one, what the fuck is that village doing there? There doesn't
it's the
seem
Bottom
to be
Hill Village.
anything. But like no, it goes against everything people and humanity has known about settling. Like we don't see a mine.
Yeah.
There's no river or fish or anything like that. Why did they settle there on the slope of a mountain unless there's something
I'm going to
we
fill in
don't
the
know?
logic gap again and say that was a volcano, and it's rich. It's rich
Okay,
in minerals.
okay.
Right.
All right, that makes sense.
I'm doing so much work for this movie. It's not even funny.
You know what? I'll take that. I'm sure there was a reason for it aside from literary positioning.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Right, yeah, I
But
know what you mean.
okay, so they go into the house like they're like hide us, and they go in the house, and Eric is there. And there's two things I want to talk about here. Number one is Eric's entire army hiding in the basement of this shack.
I guess what's left of it, maybe.
Because when they ride into Tirsley,
Right, yeah.
whatever, there's a lot of them.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe he like gathers them. I have no idea. Like again, the whole aspect of other countries or kingdoms and armies and shit is so underdeveloped. It's like, why is this even here?
But okay, so I'll take that. But I really find that particular little scene fascinating because we talked about this earlier. The just the bizarre dynamic between Mad Mortigan and Eric.
Yeah,
They're cool again.
Right,
They're totally
yeah.
cool again. Eric's negative and stuff, but Mad Mortigan should be fucking furious with him. He should be livid
just stab him through
that
the
he was
throat.
left to rot.
Right.
Yeah, but he's just like, hey man, what's going on?
Yeah,
And they have an honest to goodness conversation about stuff. He's like, well, I guess we're gonna part ways again.
right.
Like when do you bury your dagger in his ball sack for leaving you to rot in a fucking cage?
I don't know. Yeah, it's
What is going on with it? And it gets weird again during the siege, and I don't want to jump ahead to it too much, but like when Eric falls fighting
Skeletor.
Skeletor, I like Mad Mortigan takes that so
I
personally.
know. Yeah, like my dearest friend has just been killed, and it's like this
He
guy's
goes
done nothing
he
for
goes
you.
beast mode.
Yeah,
He goes beast mode, just starts slicing through people with that impractical sword. But yeah, like it's just, so this scene in particular really, I find that to be part of that fascinating dynamic between the two characters, and I think the confusion that the writers had in how to play these two
Yeah.
guys off each other, because it's like, are they best friends? Okay, then why did one leave the other to die, knowing full well that he was going to die an incredibly painful death?
yeah, slow, painful torture death.
And the other one just totally forgives him. Maybe that's because that's the mad part of Mad Mortigan. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't.
Hey,
it's,
20
It's not fleshed out at all.
$20 is $20,
It is,
right? Like
$20 is indeed $20, and that's how much they paid the writer to figure all that shit out.
that was they gave him a sleeve of saltine crackers.
Here, work out this dynamic between these two characters.
and $4 to get a case of Diet Dr Pepper or something. There you
It
go.
was the 80s. It would have been Diet Tab.
You'll live on in infamy, my
Yeah.
friend.
Then they get to Terrace Lean, and there's trolls. Like I guess there's trolls that live there and have taken. And again, it's like, how does no one know this has happened to Terrace Lean? It looks like it happened a long time ago, right? But
Yeah,
they've been told to go there by even Finn Rizal, who's a total idiot at this point, who's also been turned
yeah.
into a crow, which is very
That's that.
annoying.
That's very true. They get there. These people are encased in
Yeah.
stone, and have been for some time, considering the dilapidated nature of the grounds. I see. I did find that weird. I also found it again. We go to the suspension of disbelief mixed with the incompetence of Bab Morta's army at the very beginning when the soldiers break in and they're coming in and Mad Mortigan's using all his clever traps to fight them. There's a scene where he's hiding behind a barrel.
Oh my
He has a single shot crossbow. There are 20,
Yeah.
at least 20 soldiers with bows and arrows and other weapons at the doorway. Why don't they just charge him?
I don't. Yeah.
Why
it's
are they
so-
standing there taking shots? Like,
Yeah, it's so stupid, and like missing one guy who's hiding behind a small barrel.
oh shit! And then when he runs out of ammo for his crossbow, they're still firing arrows at him. And instead of taking cover, that's when he gets out and does his sword flip for effect. Right when
Right.
the giant dragon thing comes up. What are you fucking
Yeah, so like
doing?
if that,
Why?
if
Like,
that dragon hadn't
do you
shown
want
up,
an arrow to the face?
Yeah, if that dragon hadn't
He's-
shown up, he would be dead.
Yeah. Like I guess again, Mad Mortigan. Mad doesn't mean intelligent or
Yeah,
tactical or
but like, is that
wise
his
in
name
a
or is
fight.
that a title? Because I've never figured that part out.
I can only assume it's a title.
because it's
Mad.
so specific, right? Mad Mortigan.
Unless it's short for Madison. I, and it just kind of stuck, and he liked it. I don't know, but that particular scene definitely struck me as that's the mad part.
Yeah.
And then like just again the like stormtroopers at least were able to look somewhat menacing
Yeah.
when they were useless, right? These soldiers they're traipsing around, getting their feet caught in bear traps, and
Yeah, they're terrible.
just being
They're just terrible.
buffoons, like just useless. And okay, while we're on the subject, why? So Bab Morta's army is clearly an organized, structured army.
Yeah.
Do they not have a uniform? All of them have these like mishmash of helmets and styles and armor and weapons. Like you would think that an organized army would have some semblance of structure to it.
Yeah, it would
And
look cooler too.
It would look cooler. Some of those helmets look
Yeah.
ridiculous.
But so let's move on to the trolls, the bizarre design of the
Ugh.
troll. When you hear the word troll, is anything what they've done in this movie, does that compute in any way with what you would imagine a troll to be?
I never in my life envisioned a troll being basically an enraged chimpanzee with mange.
Yeah, like it just looks like
That
something from almost like the beginning of 2001, like one of those ape men.
Yeah,
Uh,
like when you think of a troll, and I guess it's my own sort of bias. I grew up with like Dungeons and
Yeah,
Dragons
yeah.
and stuff, and a troll is this like 10-foot giant with a club that eats people.
yeah,
Like that's what a troll. And if you ask most people, that's what their image of a troll is going to be, right?
yeah, and it's absolutely not this. And they
No.
have weird people faces, and then they turn people to stone, but they never show them doing it or establish how. And yeah, and then then Willow is confronted by one of them on this bridge, and again, this Finn Rizal is a fucking idiot. Like when you dial it down to everything that Finn Rizal accomplishes in this movie, she tells him to go to Terrace Lean, which is wrong. Then she tells Willow, "Oh, use the wand on that troll," right? So then Willow does, and then of course the wand changes the troll into a 90-foot double-headed dragon, which helps no one. Like I don't know what I mean. I guess it saved Mad Mortigan for that 1 second, but otherwise, it's a going concern. So like, why the hell did she tell him to do that?
Yeah, I have a thought on that dragon thing. I don't know why he killed it because the only reason why he wasn't overwhelmed by Bavmorda's soldiers
Yeah.
is because they were so preoccupied fighting for their lives against this dragon. Why wouldn't you and Willow use that opportunity to get the fuck out of
Right.
Dodge? Like, why would you put yourself out to jump on its head and kill it if not for any other reason other than to do one more thing so that Sorsha, who spent the entire time wandering around, unblinking, staring at your ball sack,
She did
to
nothing
have
in that
one
battle. Like,
one more thing to oogle you
yeah.
about. Because like, that's all she did.
Right.
She did
Oh,
not
no, I don't think she picked up a
fight a
sword.
single
Yeah.
person. She didn't. She just every single time she's staring at him like she wants to eat him like a big pile of beefaroni for lunch.
Right.
Like she's just oh
Yeah.
man.
The only thing I do remember that the dragon does blow fire, preventing Willow from crossing the bridge at some point. So it is a menace to them as well. It's just an
I
element
guess
of
so.
chaos, I guess. But ultimately, they could have leveraged it to their favor, but instead, yeah, they have to have the big hero moment where Mad Mortigan jumps on the thing's back, and then it's just again we're into RoboCop 2 territory where it's like he's as animated as this dragon is, and I'm sure if you did like a close up on his face, it probably just looks like a worse than the dummy from the sled. But again, it's because the blending, as long as he looks the same as them, I'm okay with it. It's just when you see the shitty matte lines, I get really frustrated when they try to blend two elements that don't go together. But so yeah, he stabs the thing in the neck, and then I guess it goes to breathe fire again, but because there's a sword in its neck, it has to explode.
I just thought it was a self-destruct because he put a metal spear essentially through its brainstem,
Yeah, maybe.
which one would assume would kill a monster. But you're right, like it doesn't look like it's any worse for wear. It just looks like it tries to breathe fire and something happens. Like maybe he punctured a sac in there that produces the stuff, and because he did that, it leaks all over the place. It catches internally and then forces the explosion. I don't know, but
And
yeah,
might
that
I add,
was
what a hideous design for this, like a good one, but just really gross and horrific looking dragon design that you would
Yes.
never expect from a swashbuckling fantasy like this. But that's again, you're dealing with the A-list, right? You've got Phil Tippett, you've got Dennis Muren, you've got these legends of special effects doing this shit and designing this shit. You're gonna get this kind of caliber creature, which is just like the last thing you would expect. And I've never seen anything like it before or since.
yeah, that's true.
It's really cool looking. So then they do that. They get out of they run away from Tirasleen.
Yeah. Well, so Kane gets away,
Right.
and then Eric comes. Obviously, too late to do anything, and
They should just, he's called Double E. He's Effective Eric. He accomplishes so much.
he's such a useless tit.
He is. He's so terrible.
All he does is complain.
He complains and arrives late to do anything. You know, like it's stupid. You know? How does that army not even stop? So Kane runs at them. He's like, I got to take this baby. So he's one-handed with a baby in his arm, just runs through these assholes like they're just not even there.
And I'm sure this is gonna get cut, but he's like a nagging wife. He shows up everywhere and just complains, and that's all he does. He complains and he's negative about everything in every possible place, because every single time, whether it's the mountaintop village or Tirsley or the crows, it's always like you're mad. You can't do it. There's no way you can do it. You might as well just give up and go fuck yourself. Like he's just this cloud.
And it's always while you're trying to get some hard work done too, right?
It is, and then when they get resurrected from being pigs again, Willow's like, I have this great plan that is our only opportunity to get into the gates, and again he's like, you're fucking insane. There's no way this is ever gonna work. He is just
all the way to the bitter
piece
and
of
then
shit.
And then at the end he has the fucking gall to tell Mad Mortigan to win this war for me. Like, fuck you. You're the last. I hope to lose this war if you ask me that.
I've done nothing this entire time. Now I need you to do all the heavy lifting and fix everything.
For me. Like, Fuck you, piece of shit.
Again and again, for me. Why? You left him to die.
Yeah, exactly.
Why would he do anything for you?
It's again, it's like what is this character and why is he here? He sucks.
What a ginger piece of shit.
It really is.
God, I hate that guy so
Oh, me too.
The more we talk about him,
I know, because
it fills me with
you
rage.
start to realize more and more this guy really is just a completely useless piece of shit.
He's like, I swear to God, he's like one of my kids. Every time I'm trying to do something for them, they just stand there and complain about it or tell me how it's not going to work. Like I'm trying to build a BMX ramp, and they're just standing there while I'm hitting my thumb with hammers, going like, "That's not going to hold up. That's not going to work." I'm like, "Fucking thanks, fucking thanks."
Yeah.
Like it's the same thing. He's that kid. He's that ungrateful kid, just standing there going, this thing that you're planning is not going to work.
Yeah.
And I'm going to follow you around this land, constantly telling you that in your times of greatest peril.
Yeah.
The other thing, and this is another moment, kind of like the cart chase, like the practical logic after the facts, like why don't you just kill the horses? When they execute their master plan to get into the castle, and it's just him and Finn Rizal, just the two of them. And they're like,
sorry, go on.
Come and get me. Come and get us. And they're like, kill them. Number one, why? Why bother killing them? There's two people outside. Just leave the gate up. Just say, fuck you. Go have a good life. Or use this weird thing that exists in that universe called a bow and arrow. And
throw
just
a fucking rock at them. Like, who gives a shit?
Have fun with target practice, right? Like, have bets. Your foot soldiers have bets, like five silver pieces to the first one to put an arrow in the old broad's eyes. Like, why did they have to open the gate and then let their riders run out? And once they sounded the alarm and the good guys came out and started chasing them, why did they leave the bridge down? For the 5 soldiers that came out, like, why didn't they raise it and say you're fucked, you're on your own, and then they would have been fine?
It's ridiculous. And the fact that like Willow introduces that as though he and only he has a unique idea, because where he lives there are gophers, but I guess no one else has grown up with gophers around. And when he said that, and I'd forgotten this, I thought that he was going to like plan to tunnel under the castle wall or something. Which would have been something. And I just hadn't remembered what happened. And then, they come out with these suspiciously covered tarps, like all around them in strategic formation. And they're just like, let's open the gate, goddammit. I want that bitch killed. It's absurd.
Go kill those two random people. I had, and this isn't so much an observation as it is my own mistake, but I'm going to fast forward all the way to the end and we can go back, but I'm thinking about this right now. So I spent the past 32 years wondering why Queen Bavmorda dies because she thinks the baby is gone. And then I realized because it's because she spilt the blood or whatever that like the secret mixture was, and then she gets struck by lightning. For whatever reason, I had it in my head that everything was fine until she thought the baby was gone, even though it's still alive and hiding behind a rock. The thought alone caused her to turn into a skeleton and then disappear. So you'd forgotten about the part where she gets hit by lightning, like the blood gets. I assume what's happening there is that the spell they were creating for the baby happens to her. And she's the one that gets banished to the nether realm? Yes, yeah.
Right? It's again, poorly thought out. And just a dumb, like the way she dies is just, she basically tripped and like spilled something. And then that caused chaos.
like a kitchen accident caused her downfall.
Basically, yeah. Like, I spilled the soup. It's not especially epic for a death of such a crazy a death. I did like, again, skipping to the end though, was the Skeletor guy.
Yes.
He does him in nice when he pulls him down onto the sword, like he puts his foot on the sword and
that
drives him into it.
I wasn't a huge fan of a lot of the choreographed fight scenes, but that one in particular
Yeah.
was my second favorite fight scene in the entire movie. And
Oh,
it
100%.
it made sense to me that someone who was smaller with more skill and speed going up against this absolute ogre of a human being, and how would you like the when he that awesome move where he like turns around and then uses his backhand to get the sword out of the way and then jabs that broken sword tip into him with the other hand.
Yeah.
And just the way that it responds, like I imagine a giant ogre of a man wouldn't just go down from that, and he didn't disappoint. Mad Mortigan's all grinning like I just won, and then he gets just nailed right in the booger shooter, like just
Yeah.
hammers
Totally.
him in the face, and then he like
Yeah.
cuts him with the sword again, and then gets punched in the face again. Like
Yeah.
that man is unstoppable, and that's how it should be. And then eventually, yeah, the kicking the sword up and pulling him down, that was
Yeah.
epic.
It's such a great, like, that's how you do a death like that. You make sure that you've established that it's very hard to kill this person. You have to be clever.
That sword that Eric was using, the one that it completely encases the hand and sticks out straight, I
And it's
found
tactically ridiculous.
I found it to be the most impractical sword I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, how
Yeah.
do you hold it like a sword? Like there's a straight handle and it's just encased in this thing. At which point you're constantly holding it like a sword, like pointed
No, I
straight
think
out,
you hold. I think the bar would be horizontal.
like a fist.
So you're making a fist and pointing it outwards, basically.
Which
The way that no one fights with a sword.
yeah, which feels super awkward when you're dealing with a foot
Yeah.
with a foot and a half long sword.
It was a really weird, especially for that. Like I understand Eric having it, but him getting it, it's a weird sword for like a hero to have.
That kind of reminds me. Eric is supposed to be the leader of that army.
Yeah.
He dies like a bitch. Like
Yeah, he dies because he's tired. He just like runs out of breath. He's just like
he had one too many beers and darts.
too much mead.
just ran out of breath.
Yeah,
And then can't even get a blow in on Skeletor.
it does nothing.
It just
You
like
know?
he should have done a bit more. But that leads me to the fact that my favorite fight, and I, in watching it, it kind of makes me realize I kind of enjoy this fight more than a lot of others in a lot of movies. It was Bavmorda versus the fuck's her name? The
Mad Mortigan versus Sorsha.
no Queen Bavmorda versus
Oh, the
Finn
evil witch?
Rizal. Finn Rizal.
Oh yeah, God, what a bunch of stupid names this movie has. Like, how is there a movie with two characters that have Bavmorda and Mad Mortigan in the same movie, and they're completely different types of characters? Like, who the fuck was naming that shit? Yeah, Finn Rizal. Yeah, when they have like the old lady fist fight.
But that's the thing. Like in watching it, it really struck me that like they start having a wizard fight. Like they're using magic.
Yeah.
They're doing all sorts of shit, and there's such resentment and hatred there that they just
Yeah.
get into this fist brawl. Like they're just punching the shit out of each other.
Yeah,
Like I actually felt like there was some semblance of emotion there. Like that fight mattered more than most of the other fights in the entire movie. Like
I guess I could see that.
I really enjoyed it.
I think aesthetically it looks weird. But
What bothers me is when they're fighting over the wand. The wand is shooting bolts, and it is just everything it hits, it's shattering. And
yes.
yet, for some reason, it hits the table and turns the table into a spider.
I think, and I could be wrong about this, but because I remember thinking that I've always thought that was weird. It's like when they're fighting for it just looks like they're fighting over a gun that just goes off.
Yeah.
What I think happened is I think one of them makes an enchantment, like says a spell, which I think was the transformation spell.
Okay. I didn't
I
hear
could be
that.
wrong. I could be wrong, but I mean that's kind of maybe I've just done that in my head to kind of justify it. Because I'm such a stan for Willow that I have to like change the rules of the whole movie just to fit just to protect it against people who might criticize it. Let's talk about so they've saved the world, right?
Yeah. The world is saved.
Or Bavmorda has been, I assume, banished to that nether realm that she was trying to banish Alora to.
Yep.
and now they're on their way home, and it's basically like do you remember The Hobbit? There's like a whole chapter devoted to Bilbo just going home, and you kind of
Yes.
think that's going to happen here, but then it doesn't. Like he just gets a. I don't think Mad Morgan speaks to him. I think he just kind of nods and smiles.
He shakes his hand, and there's
Right.
a close up of his face, and I think they did that to show that now he's a respectable prince because he
Yeah.
shaved.
So are they? So him and Sorsha are now, I guess, just in charge, like they're just by default.
What I think happened is whether it's Finn Rizal or Bavmorda dying, all the people of Tirsley stopped being stoned, so they came back to life.
Oh, okay, that makes
and
sense.
and because Sorsha was the daughter of the queen, I guess she inherits rule, and then because it's a fantasy movie, the guy is basically king just
He's
for shits
grandfathered in.
yeah, just for shits and giggles. Like I've known her all of
Yeah.
14 hours, and we're in love suddenly, so I'm
He has
gonna
bang
rule the world.
privileges.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so they say goodbye. I don't remember if the brownies are even there. I mean, they should have been stepped on by this point because they're so fucking stupid. I think Finn Rizal, does she give him something? Like, does she get to keep the wand? Or
No,
forget.
I don't think it's the one, but she gives him a book of magic spells.
Yes, right. A book
Yeah.
that we had never seen before, has never been
Yes.
established before, and now is this great talisman of power.
And if she had that book all this time, why didn't she bust it out and use it in that
I-
fight against Bavmorda?
Oh, she sucks. Finn
Why-
Rizal sucks as a wizard. Like, she's terrible as
She
a
just,
sorceress.
she just decided, and I know he said I liked it, but she just decided to go up and just punch her in the face.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you have this book of amazing wizard spells. I'm just gonna give her 5 reasons to shut her mouth.
Yeah, exactly. So then he goes home, and then he sees he's as he's walking home, it's like people in the village like Willow, Willow, like they all like as if they gave a fuck. I mean, they laughed this guy out of town basically, and now he comes back. I think they're more just like, holy shit, he's still alive. Holy shit. Like they just assumed he was dead years ago.
I assume that waltzing into town after that long an absence, you're on
Yeah.
this pony that I'm assuming is the Willow universe equivalent of like a Bugatti Veyron. Like just
Yeah.
he's just strolling in a G wagon basically. And people are like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, and then the infamous he sees his wife.
Kaya,
just screams
Kaya.
5 times. Like he says it he says it 3 times yelling, and then 1 time when they hug each other.
Oh God.
And 2 times he says it identically, and it's hilarious. Like the thing I cut in at the beginning, one of those wasn't like a loop or anything. It's him saying it twice, supposedly differently, but it sounds like exactly the same. And then they hug, and that's it. Like there's no. Oh, okay. Sorry. Before that happens, we get the fucking. He's like, I got a rock that's a bird. Check this shit out. He throws it up in the air, and then Mini King Kong Bundy gets like bird shit on his face because again George Lucas. But it's I hate it because his mouth is kind of open, and like some of it gets in his mouth, and it grosses me out, man.
So that particular happening, that kind of it's a weird thing for me to key on and to think about, but I am weird and I think about stuff like this. Imagine the implications of that. He basically threw, I think it was an apple. He threw an apple
Yeah.
in the
Yes,
air,
yeah.
and it turned into a living creature that flew away and just lived its existence. Like
Yeah.
what the
He
fuck?
conjures life. Right?
He conjures life, and that
Yeah.
bird, like what's that bird think? I know it's a bird, but it was nothing, and now all of a
Yeah.
sudden it blinks into existence in mid fucking air with its
Yeah.
wings beating. How disturbing must that be for a living creature to be like, holy shit, what is going on?
It lives in constant horror of not knowing what it is.
That disturbs me quite a bit. And I mean, we talked about this earlier. What if Burvillecut was just coming from Willow's wife's home?
I wish that she hadn't been there and he had to run into the house. Like, Kaya. He opens the door and they're just in bed together.
There you go. Looks like your fields don't need plowing this year.
Damn it.
Do-do-do, do-do-do.
And then I think the daughter does some terrible laugh again when she sees the birds, like, hey, 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 like again, proving
Yeah.
she's not an actress in
Yeah.
any way. So then we get the credits. Again, we get a nice pullback and another beautiful matte shot of the mountains and everything. I really like that shot. It's a really good shot. And then that's it. It's over. And yeah. So my final thoughts. Like I know we nag hard. One of the things about this show is that we are going to be negative on these movies a lot, but because we've just seen them so many times.
Yeah.
And it's not because the first time I saw this, I was enchanted, mostly by Sorja, but I was just enchanted, like I just thought this is great.
Mine was Val Kilmer.
And then, but yeah, as time goes on, you see the holes and the flaws. And a lot of the shows or a lot of the movies and topics, like some of them, not all the time, but we're going to copy or we're going to cover a lot of what I call also ran movies, where they're movies that were meant to be big but weren't. But are not bombs, and they're not obscure like cult movies. They're just movies that exist in this weird middle space where no one really talks or considers them most of the time. But they're worth noting, and they're worth talking about, and worth talking about what goes wrong with them and what's funny about them, but also giving them credit where it's due. And I think this movie has a lot of good going for it.
Yeah.
It's just that it makes some fatal decisions, I think, to keep it from being a classic of all time.
Well, I mean, for me, it's coming from a place of love, right? Like we're not talking about movies that we always grew up hating. There's these movies that, just like you said, they're memorable and they hold a place in our hearts.
Yeah.
But they're not like a Star Wars, right? They're not this rolling epic that we embrace fully with our hearts and souls. They're these things that had a positive part of our lives, and we've seen them a bunch of times, and it's fun to go into them from that angle and just really dig into what made them good and what kept them, as you said, from being that true classic. And Willow is a perfect example of that. Like there's a lot of stuff that's it was done well. Like there were parts that I really enjoyed. It was a whimsical, magical story, but when you look back at it, there's lots of things that are just
they just shouldn't have done.
Yeah.
Anything. We're going to sign off soon, and one thing I just wanted to cover that we skipped this, which is strange, but it's also kind of works in our favor because it lets us make sort of a mission statement about the whole show.
Okay.
Is that we skipped You Deserve Medals, if you can believe that.
We did, didn't we?
We didn't cover it, but that gives us an opportunity because what that helps us do is explain why the show is even called what it's called, because it's a ridiculous name.
Yes.
So again, this was our like 3 a.m. viewing. No pressures, no fucking obligations the next day. We've got all the time in the world. But we were watching at this point, and for some reason we thought this moment was so fucking funny when they're walking back, and then Willow's like, they're like, what are they going to do to us? They're going to treat us like heroes because we gave a kid to a random stranger on the road. And then Willow's like, yeah, it'll be like, good work, boys. You deserve medals. And we just thought the quaintness of them thinking that that's of any value to them, getting a medal for the treacherous journey they've just taken, it made us laugh so hard at the time. And we were just bouncing around show name ideas. And I just said, like, because we'd always joked about this and we were definitely going to cover this. And I just said, what if we just called the show this? And for some reason that just totally clicked. It's so bizarre and stupid that it just made perfect sense, because again, it captures the essence of, we're going to talk about useless points of information
just these random
that are
little
so
things,
obscure and it's all a waste of your time. But we're going to make sure that by the end you know about it as much as you could possibly know about it, and that's the whole point.
You're going to be able to go to
so
parties.
Like when we talk about RoboCop, I mean, we're going to spend probably an hour on Bitches Leave. Like that's probably going to be half the show, right? There's always going to be these moments from different movies that we're just going to sit on and talk about to death.
Well,
but that's kind of the idea, is that we're not just, I don't know, we're not trying to be another, podcast that talks about the 80s and pop culture. I mean, we're going to spend a lot of time in the 80s, but we're not restricted to it. We're not going to say, well, we're only doing retro stuff. It'll be any movie from any time. It's just that we have so much to cover in terms of back catalog of our lives
Yes.
that's going to probably take most of the precedence, but we will cover whatever comes to mind if we just feel like we're in the mood to do a certain movie or topic. That'll happen, but yeah, for the most part, it's going to be this kind of just deep dive into just useless crap that you don't care about. But it's also not going to be heavy on research because there are other people that do that so much better than we ever could. We just don't have the time.
Yeah.
On that note, let's call it a closing on this one.
Yes.
So we've got one, and I feel pretty good about it.
All right.
And we'll be back for more nonsense about movies that you may or may not have heard of or watched. And I hope you're along for the ride. So until then, I am Jay.
I am Benny.
And you deserve
Meadow.
All right. Yeah, this is we'll make this work. This is going to work at some point. We're going to get this right, but oh, that's magic.
Oh, sweet God. Okay. Yeah.
Out of the way, Peck.